What's going on there, folks? Good afternoon, good morning to some out there. It's the Earthmaster here on this Wednesday, October 12th, 2022. It's about 11:05 a.m. California time, so technically still morning out here. Latest quake on the Earthquake 3D globe shows a 1.1 in the Southern California region. Also some activity kind of ramping up here around the Indonesia area. Once again, seen some deeper movement kicking off there, looking like that little earthquake there in the small ring, indicating some deeper earthquake movement there around the Indonesia area. All right, let's go ahead and look at the latest activity here from the USGS map, and some movement up into the Alaska area kicking off overnight. Going to start up there. Seen a pretty good cluster of movement, a definite noticeable increase in activity around the Cook Inlet area through the Aleutian Trench regions, all the way up into the Anchorage area. Definitely a noticeable pattern kicking in up here around the plate boundary, which of course you got the Pacific plate and the North American plate up here. Major subduction zone. Of course, this area did see an 8.1 last year within this region. So a little bit of adjustment going on there throughout the Aleutian Trench. Also over here around the western portion, or this is kind of like the center portion here, around the Aleutian Trench, seen a 4.5. That one coming in, I believe that was a late afternoon time frame from yesterday, earthquake there in that area. See what we got here for latest activity. I'm going to drop the map here just a little bit to the 2.5 and above. Seen some movement overnight in the 2 and 3 range as noted here within this region. So again, this is the area that's seen the 8-pointer last year, so I'm not for certain if this is just kind of some aftershock sequences or we're looking at maybe another earthquake in this area. We'll definitely keep an eye on it. And another earthquake meaning some larger movement. One earthquake here on the Gulf of Alaska shear zone. It's going to be this little fault system here. Let's see if I can get that kicked up. Gulf of Alaska shear zone. Occasionally we see some earthquake activity out there, and today, it looks like that was afternoon time frame yesterday, a 3.5 coming into that region. Also some activity here around the BC area, about on the border. It looks like they have it set here around the Juneau, Alaska area. A couple 2s kicking off there along the border regions. The states, what do we got up here? Some movement kicking up around Seattle on the Seattle fault zone. Nothing major yet, but some deeper movement down there below the faults, or within the deeper areas of the fault systems, I should say. 1.4 near the White Center, Washington area, 29 kilometers deep for that earthquake. And low activity outside of Mount Rainier and Mount St. Helens once again. A little bit of oddball earthquake activity out here around the Horse Heaven Hills, just south of there, it looks like. A couple small earthquakes there below the 1.0 threshold. Near Lapine, it looks like we had a little 0.3 earthquake. That is south of the Newberry volcano here. That is a, we'll have to check that out here on the seismograph station, see what we got. It's been a while since I've looked at that specific volcano. But occasionally it does get some swarms, but either way, just a little small microquake south of that area. 1.2 coming in overnight near Mineral. That's just south. And it looks like it's west, a little west of the Mount Lassen area. Actually within the park. So we'll double check a couple volcanoes there, see what we got for seismic activity. Movement around the Antelope Valley area continues, although this is the Antelope Valley area up here because less population density. I always like to bring that out because a lot of people are, when I say Antelope Valley area, they're thinking down south here, where there's a much more highly populated region, but this is the Sierra Nevada Antelope Valley region around the border here of Nevada and California. Some activity kicking up there. Yesterday and also overnight time frame. Specifically around the Bay Area, looks like just south of Concord, getting in on a little bit of activity here. 1.8 and a couple other earthquakes. Some of these from yesterday and some overnight in this morning time frame. That is just off of the looks like the Concord fault Not a huge fault system, a little one, but this whole area here is just like Southern California, a very complex system of faults, spider webs, so to speak, all over the place. And a couple of these are pretty dangerous, have a pretty good potential of seeing a damaging earthquake on them. A lot of times people worry about the San Andreas fault, and there's a good reason why. There's definitely enough worry on that fault system, plate boundary, but also a lot of times these little faults here, secondary, third, kind of run parallel with the San Andreas fault, pose just as much as a hazard because they really haven't seen any larger scale activity on them in quite some time. And the potential for damaging earthquakes there in a highly populated region is quite high. All right, what do we got here? Ridgecrest, little spotty activity, but if you look over here, getting a pretty good cluster of movement up against the mountain ranges here, kind of at the southern end of the San Joaquin Valley area, south of Bakersfield, near the Grapevine. Of course, this is kind of the foothills and getting to the mountainous areas as well. Looks like a 3.7 kicked up earlier this morning time frame. Since then, we're looking at a little aftershock sequence here just outside of the Wheeler Ridge, and that is going to be on the Wheeler Ridge fault system. I want to check that out real quick and see what we got for info on that. I remember checking it out here just a while back, but I want to do another update on it, take a look at it. It's not a huge fault system, but it is a thrust fault, basically coming out of the valley, creating those mountains there to the south, the Tehachapi Mountains area. It's part of it anyway, not the specific fault that creates those, but it is right up against the northern edge of the Tehachapi area. Looks like magnitudes range from 6 to 7.1. I'm not seeing a accumulated slip rate here as far as the buildup. The south dipping thrust fault is associated with a complex series of folds, scarps to the west of the town of Wheeler Ridge and Interstate 5. It may connect at depth with the Palito fault, thrust fault. So let's check that one out real quick, see what we got here for the Palito. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Right here. And nearest communities, Grapevine, Wheeler Ridge area. Most recent surface rupture looks like between 345 and 1400 years ago along the eastern half, and a little bit later along the western half. So really nothing too recent there. Slip rate accumulated stress here is about 1.4 mm per year. That's somewhat higher than some of the other fault systems around the area. Intervals between major ruptures are uncertain. Probable magnitude 6.3 to 7.3 for this fault system. The south dipping thrust fault is part of a complex zone. This kind of says the same thing that the Wheeler Ridge did. Such a relation is only hypothetical at best. However, whatever the case, the potential for damage posed by the Palito thrust is significant. Motion along this fault could make Interstate 5 impassable at the Grapevine. Of course, the I-5 area down there is a major interstate, I should say, for folks coming and going north and south. Wow, that's crazy. So, not a whole lot of recent history on here. Between 345 and 1400 years ago. That's you could times that by the 1.4 mm and get a pretty good accumulated buildup, so to speak. Of course, you'd want to put that in feet, and I'm sure the potential is there to see something pop off there. So looking at this system here, where is the Palito fault that they mentioned? Looks like there's 1952 earthquake fractures down there. I find that kind of odd. Where's the this here's the White Wolf fault zone. Little odd. Maybe they don't have it on here. They mention it. Oh, down here. Okay, just a little bit further south. Again, right up against the mountain ranges here, these thrust faults. So that's where that little swarming is occurring right now. Looks like it's just definitely, it's hard to say if this is just aftershock activity or a bunch of foreshocks. 3.7 was kind of the main deal, followed up by quite a few other earthquakes there in that region. It has been reviewed. It looks like a few folks did report feeling it throughout the area. The focal mechanism image here kind of shows at least to me, it kind of looks like it doesn't look like it was a thrust type event, even though it's striking on a thrust fault. So either way, we'll keep an eye on it. Don't want to spend too much time on that, but a little swarming down there in an area where, again, this is right up against the Garlock fault zone too. I've been keeping my eyeball on that one for a little while. I'm possibly thinking that one or the other could trigger the big one, and that's the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. If we get a big enough earthquake up here, potentially triggering one another. All right, let's see what else we got down here. A little bit of movement outside of the Long Beach area into the jungles of LA. That one coming in looks like overnight time, or afternoon time frame. Recent earthquake out here, 1.2 in the San Jacinto mountain range. There's a couple different segments here of the San Jacinto fault zone that's not showing up here on this map, but they are there, kind of up there around where the recent earthquake struck, the little microquake one anyway. Nothing going on here at the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault for now. No major swarms on it or around it. Things look pretty typical for now. Up here in Utah, getting in some activity, pretty good movement. Kind of see that spreading out there around the Blue Creek Valley. Let's see what we got here as far as magnitudes go. Really no large magnitude today anyway. Looks like a bunch of ones and some twos in that mix there of Utah. Up at Yellowstone National Park, only a couple earthquakes being reported up there on the map. Let me check the Yellowstone overview here real quick and see what we got for earthquake activity. Still ongoing. Notice a little swarming activity here kicking up over the last few hours. Nothing major, but still just a continual earthquake swarm of very small microquakes over the last 30 days, getting into a month and a half time frame of activity. Texas and Oklahoma, these two here from last night, or yesterday I should say. Low activity in Oklahoma, and I believe, let's see here, looks like we had at least, well, the majority of these actually look like they're from this morning time frame. So some newer activity. This is just adding on to the large swarm that's kicking up out there around Kingfisher, Oklahoma area. Had about 127 earthquakes so far in the last week. Quite a bit of movement out there. Not for certain exactly what the outcome of this may be. Possibly could see something bigger. I do know it sits out there in a wealth of oil fields and pumping operations. But it is taking a linear shape here through the region. Right over a couple of these pumping operations here. Grab a drink of my coffee. Coffee, even on a hot day, is good. And yes, it's supposed to be about 96 again today here. So here's all these operations, these pumping operations out here. And that swarm of movement goes right over them. So exactly what's going to happen here? I don't know. I mean, it's possibly we could see something bigger. So far in the mix, we got largest magnitude looks to be a 3.4. Again, we have seen some 4s, mid-4s, and upper 4s around these oil pumping operations in the past. So just a heads up. I'm sure whoever's living out here, it looks like maybe this looks like some type, well, kind of hard to say if this is a house or not. It may be really hard to tell, but I do know these here are some operations, pumping operations, and they're all over the place, folks. They are all over the place, so we'll keep an eye on that area. Again, you know, they're noted all over the map. This one doesn't. Well, this one has a Sooner Trend oil field logo here, and they're just all over the place. Hennessy oil and gas field, a lot of them, and that's just going to be an ongoing presence for the folks of Oklahoma and Texas, and technically wherever else humans have drilled down into the earth and removed the resources and recharged that with some wastewater. Just a lot of potential for earthquakes now out there in the oil fields. One earthquake, kind of an odd one down here in southern Arkansas, 1.3. That one coming in, looks like afternoon time frame yesterday. New Madrid zone sits up here. Not a whole lot going on right now around the New Madrid zone, and we can verify that with the Arkansas Seismic Network. Geology, which is a beautiful subject, .arkansas.gov, and any of these stations out here. Actually, there's a couple different ones. We can go through, let's see here. Is this the one I kicked up? I guess it is, huh? I have a map one somewhere. I'm not for certain where exactly. Well, we can. There's the graphs, which is kind of cool. Woolly Hollow State Park. Either way, let's just check one of these here around the area. Lake Charles. We'll check out the Woolly Hollow area. Looks like this morning's update, or this morning's data. And it looks pretty calm. There's not a whole lot going on. The seismograph amplitude lines here are perfectly balanced as far as not being too high of a sensitivity or too low of a sensitivity. Everything looks good to where it'd be able to pick up earthquake activity. This here could be who knows what. I don't believe that's earthquake activity, but there is none. I'm not seeing a whole lot whatsoever out there around the New Madrid zone. And you know, a lot of times the USGS, I get it, they don't report earthquake updates as far as when they take place sometimes, but that's why I go to the verifiable sources, which are the raw data itself that comes from the seismographs, just for verification. 2.0 in the Maryland area. Let's see here. That one coming in looks like overnight, early evening. It looks like. Not for certain what we got out there, but some earthquake activity. It looks like out there in the wooded areas. U.S. hazard map does kind of show that earthquake within a zone of seismic activity. Of course, got to remember some older fault systems run here up against the Appalachian Mountains, even the northern end up here. There's always that potential for some earthquake activity. South America, Caribbean Plate, all these areas down south looking pretty quiet. The big island of Hawaii, let's double check this. No major changes that I can see. Still an ongoing swarm around Mauna Loa, but no major changes noted there at the big island. Activity here yesterday was really kicking up into the deep regions of Fiji, south of Fiji, I should say, into the Tonga Trench. Since then, we really haven't seen any newer activity. One 4.6, and aside from that, the majority of these were from yesterday. But this one's pretty deep, 566 kilometers deep, right up here into the area that really sees some of the deepest earthquake activity recorded on Earth. So definitely something about ready to be set in motion. New Zealand seen a 4.0. That one came in overnight time frame, about 10 kilometers deep. Also down here, remember I said to watch this area, and it looks like it did get hit overnight. The activity that kicks up here, the deeper movement, The direction of the plates here, moving kind of west-northwest into the subduction zone here, put further strain down on the remainder of the plate. And looks like a 4.0 came in overnight. Also 4.7 down around the west of the Macquarie Island area. That one came in a couple hours after the New Zealand quake, so a lot of adjustment going on down here due to all the deeper activity. So there's always a couple spots to watch when it comes to the deeper movement here along the Kermadec Trench, Utonga Trench. As always, there is a potential for buildup up here along the Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, and also, if you really think about it, the entire western portion of the Pacific Plate. But it all depends on what's stressed and what really hasn't seen any, as far as earthquake activity. And down here around New Zealand, really haven't seen any larger activity in a while. But just keep an eye on that region. Let's see what we got for the Indonesia area. This one looks like we did have one earthquake this morning, a 5.0. This other stuff there from yesterday up into the Japan region, where we're looking at a pretty good swarm of activity yesterday. Looks like it's kind of died off. The latest one overnight, a 5.0, up onto the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. Pretty shallow, but also very deadly in terms of producing this fault system here. This plate boundary subduction zone holds a major potential of creating a very large quake, and it's kind of been a while. One earthquake outside or in China here. Not a whole lot going on throughout the Middle East or the Mediterranean region. Things calming down out in the Atlantic Ocean for now. Check out the EMSC model here and just to verify data. See if we're missing any earthquakes out there. 3.4 in Poland about 7 minutes ago being reported there by the EMSC model. And also down here, 4.6 into the South America region. Looks like a couple earthquakes there not being reported by the USGS. 4.6 at 17:15. Let me see what the... Yeah, I don't think the USGS is reporting that earthquake yet. But there is some activity. South America region. All right, let's see what else we got here for the Mauna Loa region, the Big Island volcano. I like to double check these seismograph stations daily because the USGS volcanoes are putting out updates on it daily. This is the past 12 hours of earthquake activity there around Mauna Loa. Notice definitely some earthquake activity continuing. Looks like it, well, I can't say it's really calming down, but looks like we may be looking at a little bit less magnitude as far as the magnitude level goes over the last 6 hours or so. Some of these other ones are a little bit on the bigger side. Nothing major going on yet at the Mauna Loa area, just still continued activity there at Mauna Loa, and we'll definitely continue to monitor it. Let's check out the latest update here on Mauna Loa, which is put out today, this morning, 6:08 Hawaii time there. Mauna Loa is currently not erupting, and they say the same thing here. The state of heightened unrest as indicated by increased earthquake activity and inflation of the summit. Of course, they talk about the magma being the culprit, about 2 to 5 miles below. That's 3 to 8 kilometers beneath the summit. During the past 24 hours, HVO detected 65 small magnitude earthquakes. So that's a little odd. Okay, during the past 24 hours. So let's go back over here. Where's our 65 earthquakes? I only put a fraction of them up on the map. You know, only 6 earthquakes here, and they're talking 65 small magnitude below 3.0 earthquakes, 2 to 3 miles below the caldera So not for certain why they're mentioning it here in their daily update, but not in the earthquake catalog map here. So I don't know what the reasoning is. Put 65 earthquakes up on the map, and it looks pretty. It will look pretty. What's the word? Eye-catching, right, to anyone looking at this map. So maybe that's why they're not putting it up there. But there's definitely last 12 hours here, and if we were to go back the last 24 hours of one of these stations, so you'd have to count pretty much all of these, and probably come up with a total of about 65, I would assume. So a little odd. I like it when they put out the earthquakes on the map, but we can always, go to the raw data, the recorded seismograph stations for verification, and that's kind of why I do that quite a bit. All right, solar weather activity. Let's double check that real quick and see what we got popping. Just got a 4.1 in the Indonesia area on my app on my phone. Let's see. Looks like we had some C flares overnight, almost an M flare up here. This is this morning time frame, I should say. So things still relatively active, but none of these sunspots here are currently facing Earth. The most recent one here shows 3112, 3119 here, departing over there on the northwestern side of the sun, and we're left with clear skies, so to speak. Well, maybe not clear skies, but a sun disk here full of nothingness. One little developing sunspot I was watching last night. Looks like it's not developing anymore. It kind of looks like it is decaying, but we will continue to monitor that. Also down south here, it looks like a little bit of a larger region that we may need to monitor in the coming days. They have those circled as well. Doesn't look like they're numbered far as the assigned number goes, but we'll definitely keep an eye on a couple of these regions and see if they want to do anything. Other than that, we're kind of entering into some quietness time, folks. Quiet time. No major coronal holes facing us. No major CMEs have been produced, so that means green and low conditions there on the 3-day geomagnetic forecast. Not a whole lot of potential for auroras out there right now. Solar wind stream pretty calm, dead, below the 400 range. Density's down. Everything looks pretty stable and calm. Calm is the key word, I guess. All right, guys. Live stream is back up and running. It went down suspiciously about 6:41 and 16 seconds this morning. But that's all right. I'm watching it, and I'm taking notes, and I'm recording and reporting everything that's going on here suspiciously. But either way, the live stream is up and running. 4.1. There's that earthquake I just mentioned there in the Indonesia area. Pretty good cluster of movement there over the last 24 hours. Also there in the South America region. If I only had the USGS listed on here, we'd probably only see one earthquake, and there's definitely a lot more than one earthquake taking place there in the South America region. So just note this is USGS and a combination there with the EMSC model, so I utilize them both. And I can put numerous agencies on here. I can put more on the Mediterranean over here, but I don't really want to clutter it too much. But I should include maybe, we'll see. I might add the Mediterranean and also the GeoNet servers up here and see how that works out, because sometimes these smaller quakes that take place here in New Zealand, little swarms, are worth noting and watching for potentially some larger movement down there. So we'll see. I may add those throughout the day today and just kind of play it by ear and see if it's worth it. I don't want to clutter the globe and make it look, something like that. It's just too much. Too many earthquakes listed up on the map. But doing that kind of gives you an idea of where all the quiet zones are, I guess. I don't know. It's just a lot of too many earthquakes up there. So we try to keep it at about last 24 hours of activity on the map there. Sometimes it's a little bit more, but we try to keep it average in that area. All right, guys, we'll catch you a little bit later on tonight. Got some school work I got to get done today. Waiting for my coffee to really kick in before I start it up. But we'll be back a little bit later on tonight with a complete update, and we'll catch you guys real soon. Peace out.